The sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of my apartment, catching the silk of my blouse in soft, warm streaks. I sat at my desk, scrolling through emails, the hum of the city far below a distant whisper. Everything looked perfect from the outside: my corner office, my carefully curated apartment, my neatly stacked awards, but perfection is a quiet liar. Behind the sleek surfaces, there are cracks, tiny fissures of memory that still sting. My phone buzzed on the glass tabletop. A name flashed on the screen, one I hadn't expected to see. My heart caught in an instant.
Mom.
The one person who could still make my chest tighten with a mixture of love, irritation, and disbelief. I hesitated, fingers hovering over the screen, remembering the day she called with a calmness that had shattered me years ago. The day she told me, almost casually, that he went to a good home. My dog, my companion, my shadow, the soft rhythm of my mornings, sold while I was away caring for Aunt Clara. I exhaled slowly, rolling my shoulders, trying to cloak the rush of old hurt beneath the professional poise I wore like armor. Part of me wanted to hang up, pretend nothing mattered, keep the life I'd built untouched by that lingering ache. Yet another part, the stubborn, angry part that had carried me through college, through the first terrible job, through every lonely night, wanted answers. I could almost feel his fur under my hand, smell his little wet-nose warmth, hear his excited whine when I walked through the door. And for a moment, I was 22 again, sitting on my childhood couch, trying to make sense of betrayal disguised as care. I pressed answer. I was 22, and the world felt simultaneously vast and suffocating. College was behind me, and I had taken a break to care for Aunt Clara, who had fallen ill unexpectedly. My parents had insisted I could manage both the hospital visits, the house, and of course our dog, Milo. He was my shadow, a small golden retriever with fur the color of honey, eyes that mirrored my moods, and a wag that could erase a bad day. I had never left him alone for long, and the thought of him anxious and lonely made my chest tighten every time I stepped out. I remember the phone call like it happened yesterday. Mom's voice was too calm, almost rehearsed. "We found Milo a good home," she said, as if reading from a script. My hands went cold. The phone trembled in my grip. I tried to speak, to protest, to tell her he was part of my world, my little constant in all the chaos, but the words caught in my throat. They had already decided, already acted. My parents had sold him while I was away, trusting that their version of doing right mattered more than my love for him. I sank onto Aunt Clara's faded couch, my hands shaking, my chest tight with disbelief. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and old books, comforting yet incongruous, with the storm raging inside me. I cried, quietly, not wanting to wake Aunt Clara, feeling a strange mix of grief, anger, and betrayal. I clutched the little notebook my grandmother had given me, a small leather journal she'd said held the power to remind me who I was when the world tried to decide for me. Write what matters. Protect what you love, she had whispered, pressing the journal into my hands. That notebook became my anchor. I wrote about Milo, about the injustice, about my dreams of independence. I wrote plans that scared me with their ambition and hope, and slowly, a decision crystallized. I couldn't wait for anyone to validate me, not even my family. I would make my own life, on my terms. I would grieve, but I would not crumble. I would turn heartbreak into resolve. By the time I closed that journal that night, I knew one thing with unwavering certainty. I was leaving the version of myself that waited for permission behind. Milo's absence hurt, but it also ignited a fire in me. I would carve out a world where my voice mattered, where my choices counted, and where no one could take what I loved without consequences. Leaving that apartment behind, I stepped into a world that didn't know me, or more accurately, a world I refused to let know the full weight of my past. I rented a tiny studio downtown, barely big enough for a bed and a desk, but it was mine. I carried Milo's memory like a quiet ember in my chest, fueling long nights of work, study, and self-invention. Every morning, I brewed coffee and traced the edge of my grandmother's journal, reminding myself of her words. Write what matters. Protect what you love. I met Thomas at a networking event months later, a seasoned marketing executive with sharp eyes and an uncanny knack for recognizing talent. He listened as I spoke with hesitant confidence about my fledgling ideas for a small consultancy. Unlike my family, who had dismissed my ambitions as whims, he saw potential. You're underestimated because you're careful who you show your fire to, he said. Don't apologize for the heat. His mentorship became my compass. Under his guidance, I learned to navigate contracts, pitch clients, and handle negotiations. I stumbled, failed, stayed up until 2 a.m. drafting proposals, questioning whether I had the right to dream bigger, but each small win reminded me that I could. The first client to trust me was a boutique brand in Brooklyn, one that believed in creative storytelling as much as I did. I remember walking into their studio, heart racing, and presenting my ideas, my hands shaking slightly, not from fear, but from hope. When they said yes, I felt a surge of validation I hadn't known I needed. Weeks turned into months, and I added more clients, more projects, more victories, each one quietly building the life my parents had never expected I could create. I lived in secret, mostly. Social media updates were curated and minimal, never hinting at the financial stability or creative freedom I had achieved. I avoided family gatherings, avoided calls when I knew the old questions and thinly veiled judgments would come. Milo's absence lingered, but each small accomplishment, each signed contract, each project launched became a tribute to the resilience I had nurtured from heartbreak. I decorated my apartment in little triumphs, an abstract painting for my first profitable project, a soft throw blanket reminding me of cozy nights with Milo, a framed quote from Thomas on my desk. Every object was a marker of growth, proof that I had created a world on my own terms. The woman who had once cried silently on Aunt Clara's couch now sat in a sunlit office, making decisions, setting goals, and building a life of substance and beauty, all while keeping the most powerful part of her journey, her pain, her loss, her grit, quietly tucked away. It was a rainy Thursday when they walked into my office, umbrellas dripping, eyes wide with the kind of expectation only family can carry, the expectation that I was still struggling, that life had proven them right in some quiet, cruel way. My parents, of course, were at the forefront, their expressions a mixture of mild annoyance and that thinly veiled pride they always assumed I craved. I motioned to the chairs, the office humming softly around us, modern art adorning the walls, light filtering through sleek blinds that cast delicate stripes across the polished hardwood floor. They looked around, hesitant. My collection of awards, the framed front-page article featuring my consultancy, the custom leather-bound journals stacked neatly on my desk. They were taking it all in, absorbing a reality that contradicted every word they had ever spoken to me. I watched as Mom's fingers grazed the edge of my desk, eyes flicking to the skyline view beyond the windows, as if seeing my success was physically overwhelming. My father cleared his throat, probably rehearsing something he would never say, words of regret or admiration. I couldn't tell which. I let the silence stretch. Let them taste the dissonance between expectation and reality. This was my stage, my moment, and I wasn't rushing to fill it. My own heartbeat seemed loud in the quiet, steady and confident. Finally, I spoke, voice calm, controlled, yet charged with emotion. You probably thought I'd be struggling, still waiting for someone to validate me. That life would be smaller, quieter. But here I am. I gestured to the office, the city view, the tangible evidence of years of work, perseverance, and silent determination. This is the life I built, on my own terms. Every client, every project, every late night, every risk, it was mine to take. Their reactions were immediate. Mom's hand flew to her mouth, eyes glistening with a mix of shame and disbelief. Dad's jaw tightened, and for the first time, I saw the realization that their version of control, the version that allowed them to sell Milo without a second thought, had failed utterly. They had underestimated me, as they had so often done, and now it was undeniable. I wasn't just successful, I was unshakable. I paused, letting my words linger in the air, before adding the truth they could no longer ignore. And as for Milo, he taught me something they never could. I lost him, but I found myself. I grieved, yes. I missed him every single day. But I took that pain, that heartbreak, and I made a life that no one could take from me. No one, not even the people who were supposed to love me the most. Mom's lips trembled. My father's face was a mixture of guilt and awe. Their silence was deafening, the kind that comes when someone realizes they are standing before a force far stronger than they ever anticipated. I watched it, the shift from expectation to stunned comprehension, and I allowed a small, almost imperceptible smile to cross my face. For the first time, I felt the balance tip. Not revenge, not cruelty, but clarity. Milo's absence had been a wound, yes, but it had forged this moment, this room, this woman who stood firmly, wholly, unapologetically herself. The room was heavy with silence, the kind that hums with tension and realization. I could feel the shift. I wasn't the girl they thought they knew. I had the upper hand now, and for the first time in years, I could choose how to shape the interaction, how much compassion to extend, and where to draw lines that no one would dare cross. I looked at Mom first. I want us to have a relationship, yes. I began, voice steady. But it will only work if honesty replaces convenience. No more decisions about my life, or what I love, made for me without my consent. And if you ever think you can fix or dismiss something that matters to me again, that stops here. I saw her swallow hard, a flicker of shame passing across her features, but also a hint of relief, as if a path forward, however strict, might finally exist. Dad's turn. I met his eyes, unwavering. Respect isn't optional. It's not just about what I've built. It's about listening, truly listening, when someone tells you their truth. I will support you, but only if you can respect my choices, my boundaries, my life. That's the deal. His shoulders slumped slightly, the weight of his past mistakes settling into comprehension. Then I addressed the broader lesson, the condition that tied everything together. We all need to grow. Toxic habits, old patterns, dismissive comments, they have no place here. If you want to be part of this family, part of my life, you'll embrace change. You'll pursue your own growth as much as I've pursued mine. Because love without respect is just comfort in a cage. I could see it, the flicker of hope, the flicker of fear, and then the flicker of recognition. They understood that this wasn't punishment. This wasn't about revenge. This was about creating a space where we could finally exist as equals, adults capable of mutual care without manipulation or betrayal. And then I made it personal, the final touchstone. I grieved Milo deeply, and in that grief, I found strength. You won't erase what I loved, but you can choose to honor what that taught me. Every condition I set, every boundary I draw, it's not about keeping you out. It's about letting us in the right way. I let my words linger, letting them sink in like sunlight through rain-streaked windows. There was discomfort, yes, but also clarity. A power shift had occurred, subtle but complete. I wasn't imposing cruelty. I was offering structure, a blueprint for the kind of connection we could finally achieve. Compassion, tempered with firm resolve, was my new standard. And the room, once tense, weighted, uncertain, was beginning to breathe again. I realized then that the woman they underestimated wasn't just successful. She was deliberate, strategic, and fully in control of her heart. And this control was a gift, not a weapon. Weeks passed after that meeting, and I watched subtle changes ripple through my family. Mom lingered on phone calls longer, asking genuine questions instead of giving instructions or judgments. Dad showed up unannounced with small gestures, coffee from my favorite cafe, a thoughtful comment about a project I'd shared online. It wasn't immediate, and it wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for the first time in years, I felt the space between us shrink without surrendering myself. I spent quiet mornings with my grandmother's journal, the leather soft under my fingers, the pages filled with ink and memories of heartbreak, lessons, and hope. Milo's absence still echoed in the corners of my mind, but now it was a gentle pulse, a reminder of how far I had come. I thought about him often, how he had trusted me, how he had loved without question, And I realized that love, even lost, could shape resilience. It had shaped me. The apartment was filled with light that morning, the same golden hue that once warmed Milo's fur. I poured coffee, traced the lines of my latest project on the desk, and allowed myself a small, private smile. This life, this success, this network of love and boundaries, it was mine. Every triumph carried the weight of those early nights of grief. Every confident word I spoke echoed the courage born from loss. I thought of my parents, of Milo, of Aunt Clara, and of every quiet voice that had encouraged me along the way. The journal sat open beside me, a symbolic reminder that the lessons of the past were not chains, they were bridges. And I realized the truth that had taken years to crystallize. Strength is not measured in revenge or wealth or applause. Strength is the courage to honor your love, protect your boundaries, and create a life that no one else can define. I took a deep breath, feeling the light on my face and the rhythm of the city below. I am whole, I whispered to myself, soft and unwavering. I am unshakable. And I am free. Bottom of form.